Hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of Ignite Your Wow, the only show about wow. I'm Kellen Ann, and I'm your host. We have a fabulous show today for you, but first we have to talk about our sponsors. The first one is Blue Sky Video Productions. Blue Sky Video Productions is Bruce Himmelblau. He is the Livestream Producer, which he produces my show. He's also a YouTube strategist. So in this day where you need to be going live and posting videos, he's the man to ask. So I'm going to bring him on right now, and he's going to give us the tip of the week, not tip of the day, tip of the week.
Tip of the week. Yep. Hi. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So I've been watching the news, and what's been in the news lately is a lot of these cyber hacks and cybersecurity breakthroughs. So the key is to defend your system against any sort of spamming is to update your passwords on a frequent basis. So that if your system does get hacked and your password ends up on the dark web, people aren't using that. And if you change your passwords on a frequent basis, they won't get in. And then, so the other tip is to use double, or was it called two-factor?
I was going to ask you, there's got to be an easier way, because I'm not going to tell you that I don't change my passwords, but it's a pain in the butt to do it.
Yep. So although two-factor verification is a pain as well, but it can save you from having someone get access to your system, is because when you log in, it sends a unique code to your phone. Mm-hmm. And as long as you don't lose your phone, you have access to your phone. Because if you lose your email address or your email password, they get access to your email. They can log into your email and go through all your systems and say, forgot my password. Log into your system, delete that message, and you're locked out of everything.
Yeah, I've been there. Not ashamed to say that.
And
I have enacted my
two-factor. Has firsthand knowledge of how to subvert any sort of criminal activity, because we're talking everything is on the up and up these days, of course. Right, Anthony?
Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh.
Who's your other sponsor?
Well, thank you, Bruce. And our next sponsor is cardsthatwow. That's me. If you want your brand to make your client, you want to stand out and make your client say, wow, find me at cardsthatwow.com. I'd be happy to give you a free consultation and design for your card that will wow. So my guest today, Anthony Luciano Raimondi, and if I misspelled that, you can correct me when we bring you on. He was born into a world that most people would never venture into or experience or even be a part of. He was born into the world of organized crime. In his first book, he tells rampant corruption. He talks about rampant corruption, payoffs, bribes, and the treachery and deceit and the assassinations in the Vatican. And he also talks about the biggest heist in mob history. My guest today is Mr. Anthony Raimondi. Anthony. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that intro was okay. Did I massacre your name?
It's my pleasure. Yes. No, you did it fine. You did very well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
You did very well.
So I'm really excited to have you here today for a number of reasons. You had a page turner book, which that doesn't happen to me very often. So I appreciate the good read. What I did is I picked out some people and things that I wanted you to talk about. And, obviously you were born into this family. Can you talk a little bit about your grandpa, Frank Casa?
Yeah, well, my grandfather, Frank Casa, the real last name is Costello. Mm-hmm. And he's first cousins to Frank Costello. Now, we had cousins with the name Casa also, because the only reason why my grandfather switched it at the time, because every time they went to get Uncle Frank, because I called him Uncle Frank, he was older, they would grab my grandfather. Now, my father was only 5'4". Now, Frank Costello, Uncle Frank, as I called him, he was like 6'2". I mean, He was like 100, he was like about almost 190 pounds. And my grandfather was like 140 pounds. I mean, how could you mistake the two? I mean, it's impossible. So what he done, we had cousins back in Sicily with the name Casa. So he took the name and changed it over. But meanwhile, they still kept coming to the house every now and then. The feds, the FBI kept coming to the house. But he had bought a house many years ago, my grandfather, when he just came here from Italy. I think he was about 20. He bought an 8-family house on Baltic Street in Brooklyn between 3rd and 4th Avenue. There was nothing but family in the house. No strangers, no tenants, all family lived in the house. You know, my uncles, my aunts, every one of us was like, there was 2 apartments on every floor. And that's where we were in the building. But there was nothing but family in that building. No strangers, no nothing.
Nice.
That's the way my grandfather wanted it.
Yeah, but
he was good, my grandfather. He was cool.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite story about him, with you and him?
Not everything with me was favorite with him, but I remember, what was it? I was taught, I was a kid and I was watching TV and I was turning around and he heard me talking to a cousin of mine. All right, he heard me talking to my cousin Ralphie, saying, Ralphie, you know what? Let's get a gun. I want to get a gun. I want to carry a gun. I kept telling him. And my grandfather overheard this. I was about maybe 11, but I was already getting into trouble. So I said, oh, let's go down and see the big boys down the block, meaning the older kids, the teenagers. You know, maybe one of them had a gun. You know, I could buy a gun. P.S. My grandfather, I'm walking out of the hallway. He just grabbed me by the back of my collar. He took me right off my feet. He was small, but he was strong. His words to me were, you never carry a gun. A man doesn't carry a gun. If you're going to do anything, you do it with your hands. The gun will get you in trouble. The gun will get you going to jail. On and on. I mean, this is like a half hour. He was preaching to me about a gun. That's okay. I said, well, that's over and done with. You forget that number. I ain't getting no gun. P.S. 2 days later, he's walking up the block. The FBI comes. They pull him over to search him. They took 2 guns off of him. He had 2 guns on him.
Oh, my God.
So now, I said, well, where's Grandpa? The Grandpa's not home. No, Grandpa will be home tomorrow. He'll be home tomorrow. I didn't know he got arrested. P.S. My other grandfather comes down, Antonio. He goes, where's Grandpa? Did he get back yet? He said, did they let him out yet? I said, what do you mean? He says, he got picked up with the 2 guns on him yesterday. They didn't let him out yet? I says, no. I said, oh, 2 guns he had on him, man. Okay. He came home, and, you know, they were all talking. I'm looking at him. I'm just looking at him, and he goes, what's the matter? Nothing. It's gone on all night. Then about 10:30, 11 o'clock, everybody left. He goes, oh, what's the matter? I said, you're talking to me about a gun. They picked you up with 2 fucking guns? Needless to say, when I said fuck, I caught a smack. I said, they picked you up with 2 guns, and you're telling me, okay? I said, why are you carrying guns? He couldn't answer me. Then he turned around, and he says, oh, they weren't mine. I was holding them for a friend. I said, yeah, you were holding them for a friend. I said, yeah, I'm supposed to believe you were holding them for a friend. I said, they got you down over here as one of the guys in the black hand. You're a boss, and you were holding these guns for a friend. He said, yeah, okay. So with that, he turns around, he tells me, he says, listen. He said, I don't want you carrying a gun because I don't want you to get in no trouble. That's Papa. I'm always getting into trouble anyway. The cops come here looking for me every other day. Either I broke a car window, or I popped somebody's tires, or I stabbed the kid in the school that time. That was Raymond Cicerillo when I stabbed him in the arm that time. I says, where am I hanging out? I'm with Cousin Mac. I'm going down to Diplomat. Uncle Maya comes over. I'm always with him. Uncle Lucky comes in from Italy. I says, I'm with my other grandfather, Antonio. I'm with you. I says, come on, let's be serious over here. With that, he says, when you're old enough, you can carry a gun. I'm saying to myself, how freaking old do you got to be to carry a gun? But he kept telling me, when you're old enough, you carry a gun. But he was preaching to me about not carrying a gun. Meanwhile, he gets picked up with 2 of them he was carrying.
Right.
I didn't say, my grandfather, he was set in his ways. He had his own ways about him. You know what I'm saying?
It sounds like a typical grandfather parent. Do what I say, not what I do. Right?
Yeah, but he was cool with me, my grandfather. I used to eat in his, my mother used to cook because where we were on the 2nd floor, It was me, my mother, and my father. And right next door was my grandmother and grandfather. Every night, my mother would cook, and my grandfather would eat. And my grandfather would say, "My grandfather, sit over here." We go sit over here. I used to sit next to him when we used to have dinner. Every night we had dinner, I had to sit next to him. Now, a lot of my cousins didn't like that I had to sit next to him. I found years ago, later on in the years, as I got older, I understood why. Because he wanted me next to him, my grandfather. Because my grandfather, I don't want to say I was his favorite, but I would say he had more feelings towards me than my other cousins. And when we left Baltic Street, when the city bought out the house, and my father bought a house on 12th Street between 3rd and 4th Avenue in Brooklyn, my grandfather came with us. He wanted to live with us, with me, my mother, and my father. I mean, he loved all his children, don't get me wrong, but he wanted to live with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 3 bedrooms. My grandfather said, no, make it 1 bedroom because me and you stay in the same bedroom.
Aw.
I couldn't understand why, but and then as I got older, I learned every night he would tell me a story about the old country, about the Sicilians, about what we did, how the Black Hand was created, what we're supposed to stand for, what we do, and everything like that. And every night he used to tell me that till I had it, I knew it in my head like it was nothing. He was grooming me then, my grandfather, too. Meanwhile, as I was doing everything else.
Can you talk about
some piece of work.
Oh, sorry.
Who?
Can you talk about the Black Hand and talk about what that is to my listeners who may not know what that is?
All right. From what I know about the Black Hand is different than the mafia.
Right.
Okay. Totally different deal. These guys were the type of guys that, okay, if you had a beef with one of them, if you had a problem with one of them, or you did something wrong, they would come in and wipe out your whole family.
Oh, geez.
They would wipe out your whole family. And when they would send you a warning, it would be a hand on a piece of paper with the outline, but all covered in black. Like it was like the way I'm holding up my hand, it would be like that, 5 fingers coming up like that, all in black. That was a warning. If you didn't take the warning, these guys would just take you right out.
Wow.
If they couldn't get you, they would go after your family. That's why in the Black Hand, you never had rats. You had maybe 1 or 2 guys who ratted on everybody. Maybe. And that was it. But the Black Hand also gave orders to what you would call the mafia or organized crime. They were the top guys. Those were all the Sicilian guys. And they put all the rackets together. And they will always honor the church. The church always came first with them. But these are guys who'd never mess with these guys. Even what you would call the mafia or the United States Mafia won't mess with the Black Hand.
Wow.
These guys don't care. They have one code they live by. We do for each other. We take care of each other. We take care of our families. You do us bad, you get one time you're told when you come into this. You do the wrong thing, we take you right out. You're told only one time before you go in. And if you do the wrong thing, they're going to come in, they're going to take you right out.
So was this a family thing, or did other people? Yeah. It was just
my
family?
Grandfather, Antonio Raimondi, he was in it. He was a boss in it also. And they used to call him Tony the Barber. He was small too. He was like 5. I think Grandpa was about 5'5". He also weighed about 170 pounds, but he was a barber. I mean, he used to give us haircuts and everything. And then I realized that a lot of guys would walk into my grandfather's barber shop and you never seen them again.
Oh.
They just disappeared. Oh, yeah, they just disappeared. They disappeared. My grandfather my grandfather Antonio was no joke. If I would tell you, I'd say he was worse than my grandfather Frank. He was very, very bad. And he was Uncle Lucky's. They were cousins and they were brother-in-laws. Lucky Luciano. With my grandmother, Nancy, was Lucky's half-sister. Because Grandpa Antonio, as I called him, which was Lucky's father, he had an affair with a woman. And when he had 4 daughters. There was Auntie Cumberlina, there was Auntie Mary, Auntie Lucy, and Aunt Nancy. My grandmother's name was Nancy Nunziata. So Lucky was already a cousin to my grandfather. Plus, when Nancy, his father had my aunt and a friend and her sisters, he was her brother. You follow? He was her brother. Now, when my grandfather kidnapped my grandmother. He took her right off the streets of Sicily. He took her, my grandma Nancy, and he married her. Now Uncle Lucky's also his brother-in-law. So we were covered all the way around the board, but everybody was cousins. See, back then, cousins married cousins all the time in Italy, especially in Sicily. Especially in Sicily, they married each other all the time.
Nice.
But it was an interesting. But my grandfather was unbelievable. He was funny. My grandfather, I loved it. I loved my both grandfathers equally. They always had stories. They always told me, the right thing to do or what I was doing in that life. Let me put it to you that way. And everybody always came and seen them. Everybody always came and seen them. And they were quiet. They were always quiet. They never really yelled or got abusive or anything. But when something had to be done, it was done. End of story. It was done. There was no questions asked. It was done. And when they gave you an order to do something, you had to do it. You had to do it. Otherwise, pay the consequences.
Yeah. I don't think I'd want to find out what those are.
No.
Okay, so the next, I'm still at the beginning of your book, but December 16th, 1960. Why is that significant to you?
I was in the 3rd grade. I'm sorry, there's thunder in the background. We're having a bad storm over here in New York.
You're fine.
In 1960, I was in the 3rd grade, and my teacher's name was Mrs. Piccarelli. Lovely lady, real nice. I was sitting by the window because I was bad. All the bad kids, they would stick by the window. Can you hold on 1 second? Let me just take this quick. No, all right, hold on. All right. Robert, I'm doing an interview. Let me call you back. Bye. That's all. That's my manager. That's why I had to call him. He's calling from Vegas. Anyway, I was the only bad kid in the class. So naturally, guess where I'm sitting? By the window. Now, I remember there was a lot of snow on the ground. It was like 2 weeks before Christmas. We heard an explosion. This was a serious, serious explosion. And then it sounded like a rocket that you heard it coming, starting to get louder, which nobody knew what it was. Now, at that time, they had what they used to call duck and roll. The teachers tell us, get underneath the desk, put the thing, because everybody was afraid with the atomic bombs at that time. That's what they taught us in school. Did I go under the desk? No. I went by the window. I'm over here like this. I want to see. And you could hear the noise getting louder and louder and louder. But the explosion, it shook the school. Now I'm here. It's getting so loud. It's like you couldn't even hear me. If you were standing next to me, I couldn't hear you talk. What happened? Two jet planes collided over Staten Island. One crashed in Millersfield where they built the school. And the other one was trying to make it to Prospect Park to go into the big sheep meadow up there. When I seen it, what I saw was the plane came gliding like this through the block, gliding, no wings. Wings were cut off. I'm looking at the window like this. What was left of the wing hit the window. And I had all glass stuck in my head over here. Here, under here, all over my face, all glass. Nothing went in my eye. They said that was a miracle. The plane went down like this, slowly. It hit ground between 7th Avenue and 8th Avenue on Sterling Place. After it went down, maybe 5 seconds, 6 seconds later, it exploded. Now they're taking us all out of the school. How it didn't hit the school, they said, was a total miracle. But it took out about, I think 12 or 14 brownstones. There was a guy on the corner of 7th Avenue selling Christmas trees. They never found his body. It took out a funeral parlor, another laundromat, and a couple of things. Then the wing of the plane went into the Pillar of Fire Church up the block. Part of the plane also took the steeple off of St. Augustine's Church. When they got us downstairs, they got us out. My mother was there. My mother and my aunts, they ran up there because we were on Baltic Street. And it was only like, 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks away. So they went up to 5th Avenue, crossed 5th Avenue to Sterling Place, and right up the block. When they were going to take me out, the ambulance guys got me, and they said, no, we had to take him into the hospital because I had all here like this, all covered in glass from the window. When they put me in the ambulance, they brought the kid who lived for 1 day. The kid was so badly burnt, you couldn't tell if he was white or black. He was totally burnt. The kid's name was Stephen Baltz. I'll never forget the kid. They put me and him in the same ambulance, and what they done, he passed away the next day. The change that he had in his pocket, they put it in a plaque with his name, and it's in Methodist Hospital in Brooklyn, in the Chapel area. They had it there. It was 1960. But I kept telling everybody, and everybody said I was crazy. I'm going to tell you, I told them that I seen death on the plane. I says, I'm telling you what I saw. I saw him on the plane. I says, not walking in the plane. I'm talking about on top of the plane. To this day, I tell you then, but I'm not done with the story. When the plane came through, it was gliding like this slowly through the block. I seen him go like this to me with his hand, just wave by like that to me. I said that then. I said this now. P.S. When they took me out of the school, they were putting me in the ambulance. I kept telling everybody, there he is. I seen him walking down the block. And I kept telling them, they're going, where? And I'm pointing to where he was. He turned around, he smiled, and he just waved like that goodbye to me. That was it. My mother and father, for 3 years, I went to every psychiatrist you could imagine. New York State, Jersey, they took me as far as Pennsylvania. Every psychiatrist said the same thing. They said one or two things. Either he really worked himself up into a frenzy or a state that he believes this is what he saw. And my mother and father said, okay, well, it's the second thing. Or he really saw it. And I'm telling you, to this day, you're talking about this 60 years later, I know what I saw. And he wasn't like what you would see in the movies. He had the robe on like a monk's robe. He wasn't a skeleton. The skin was very tight around his face and you could see all the bone features and stuff. But it wasn't a skeleton. And I said it then, and I still tell you this day, and we're talking 60 years later, this is what I saw. And every year, on the 16th of December, I go to that block. I go to the block and walk around. I walk up to 8th Avenue and come back down. Because I consider myself lucky that I'm still here. And
so that's what
that plane never hit the school.
That's amazing.
Never hit the school.
That's amazing.
That was a miracle in itself.
Yeah.
And now they built condo on the block where the guy lost his, where the guy was selling the Christmas trees. I think it was 10 years ago. They sold the property or so, and they built condos on there. But yet everybody in the neighborhood now, all the new people, none of them even remember half the stories over there, unless you get some of the old timers.
Wow.
But I go there every December 16th. I go there. I get my car. I park my car in front of St. Augustine School. I just walk up to 8th Avenue in Flatbush, where Flatbush Avenue Extension is, and I come back down the block, and I walk back down.
Wow.
That's something I'll never forget. Even after I'm dead, I won't forget it. Never happened. And I was interviewed by Channel 5, Roseanne Scotto, on the 50th anniversary. Channel 11 did an interview with me live at the scene on the 50th anniversary. 1010 Wins did. And I think it was Channel 9 did it. And they interviewed me because they were interviewing people. And one genius, this guy was a real freaking moron, says, I heard a noise. You heard a noise? He goes, I heard a noise. I opened up the door to my house, stepped out on the stoop, and there was a jet plane there and it exploded. Well, if that was true, you stupid fucking moron, you wouldn't be here. You'd be dead. That's number one, because it took out 14 brownstones. Then some other blonde woman, whoever the she was, says, it went over my head and it landed up the block. Really? If it went over your head and landed up the block, you'd be dead. The plane was on fire. When they seen the record of me in the hospital and they looked at it, they all called me and interviewed me. And they had it on TV, all on TV and on the radio. I gave them the real story. Guys, come on. The guy says, I heard a noise. You hear a jet plane hits the ground. That's a noise? Come on, let's be serious. And you open up the door, and he goes, and I stand out on my steps, and I'm looking at the jet, and it exploded. Well, then you wouldn't be here. You'd be dead. And your building wouldn't be there either. You got a lot of morons who were trying to say they saw what they saw, and they weren't even there. Believe me when I tell you.
So the people at the ER said that you were pretty darn lucky.
Oh, yeah.
And then your family said that you were lucky just like your uncle. and that you like that. So do you want to talk about your uncle a little bit?
My Uncle Lucky, I didn't know, I knew him as much as I could know him up to the age of 10 years old. But what I will tell you, a lot of bullshit was written about him. And I'm telling you bullshit. First of all, they did deport him. There's no two ways about that. But what they failed to tell you is a year after he was deported, he kept coming into the United States 4 or 5 times a year. When I was born, the day before I was born, he came into the United States. And he came to the hospital when my mother gave birth to me on October 12th in 1953. He was there. Uncle Anil Delgaccio was Anil Dela Croce was there. Frank Costello, Carlo Gambino came up there. You had Carmine Galenti came up there. All of the big guys were up there because they were all related to my family. They were all there. My Uncle Lucky always came in 4 or 5 times a year. And Uncle Maya Lansky, when he would come in, Maya Lansky was always in New York, and I always went with Maya. Now I called him Uncle Maya because the guy was like an uncle to me. I can't even say he was like an uncle. He was like a father. I got to be honest with you. He took me with him, and he taught me a lot of stuff. He taught me the Shylock business. He taught me how to shake people down. He taught me how to make bonds. He taught me a lot of stuff, Uncle Maya. But Maya, every time he came into New York, where would he go? Right to my mother's house on 12th Street, or when we were on Baltic Street, he would go on Baltic Street, stay there, and come on, Anthony, you're coming with me. Okay. I just jump in the car with him. He used to go take care of business, and I was there. Nobody ever said a word. Maya used to say, "This is my nephew. I'm getting to wait till he gets big, and he's gonna take over." I always seen Maya up until, I always seen Maya. Then I used to go down to Florida all the time and see him. And then Maya, the only thing I'm pissed off about is that when Maya died, I was out on bail. I was going away to prison. And I tried to make a deal with the feds, meaning when I say make a deal, like, let me go to his wake. Even if I spend 5 minutes there, I'll come back. I said, I'll pay for the airline tickets. I'll pay for the marshals to come with me, the whole 9 yards. Just to go there for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come right back. They told me no. That's the only thing I'm pissed off at. That they wouldn't let me go down there when he died. That's what I'm mad about.
I can understand that.
That's it. But you know what? Wherever he is, he knows I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
You know, but he was some piece of work, Uncle Maya. He was fantastic. Yeah, I remember he used to carry an ice pick. Seriously speaking, he carried an ice pick. And one day he gave it to me. And I says, here's what I want you to do. I was 16. This is before I got in trouble with Sally Burns and them. He goes, we're going to see Red Robbie. And they call this guy Red Robbie. He's a Jewish gangster. He goes, he don't want to kick in. It's okay. He goes, here's the ice pick. He said, I'll tell you what to do in a little while. I said, all right. Now we're in the car driving, and we got by the guy's house, and he gets a box out. He opens up the trunk, gets a bag, gives me a little box. He goes, go under the car and strap this to the gas tank. He goes, to pull the antenna out. Okay. He goes, when you do that, he goes, press this button here and get out. Okay. He gave me the stuff, and I strapped it onto the guy's gas tank with the straps there, and I had straps. I pressed the button, pulled the antenna out, got out. He goes, you know what you just did, right? I said, no, what? He goes, you put a bomb under the car. I said, I put a bomb under the car? Yeah, it's a fucking bomb. It's okay. He goes, now, when this guy comes out, he gives me any problem, I want you to get the ice pick and stick it under his neck. He goes, or if you want, stick it in his ear, put it to his head. He goes, tell him whatever you want to tell him. P.S. He calls this guy comes out. The guy looks at me, he goes, who is he? He goes, that's my nephew. So Maya's telling him, you got to come up with an end over here. He goes, you're in our territory. You're doing all this illegal stuff. You got to give me an end. The guy's telling Maya, no. With that, the car blows up. Boom. As soon as the car blew up, I put the ice pick under the guy's neck like this. I turned around, I told him, I said, you make one move. I said, see this 9-inch blade? I'll stick 9 inches through your fucking ear right into your brain. I said, you understand? And then I'll stick it in the back of your head, and then I'll stick it through your eyeballs. So the guy just looked at me, and I poked him a bit, and he started bleeding. See a little blood coming down. The guy started crying. I'm 16 years old. The guy started crying. Turns out he gave Maya 1/3 of his whole operation. Wow. That was a lot of money. 1/3 of the whole operation.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a big operation going. 1/3 the whole operation he gave him. Maya taught me a lot. I gotta tell you.
Okay, we're gonna hop over to another person that I know you know. We're gonna hop over to a new person, Mama Julia.
Oh, Mama Josh, she was wonderful. She had a candy store right on Baltic Street and 3rd Avenue. Now, Mama Julia back then, I would say, God, maybe she was in her late 50s, early 60s. We used to go down there buy candy. We used to get these prize packages and stuff. But every time we got in trouble, I used to run down the block and run into Mama Julia's. She used to stick us in the cellar or hide us in the back room. Cops would come looking for us. I don't know where they are. My father would be looking for me, that he had to give me a beating for something I did. I'd be hiding in the back of Mama Julia's place until she was able to calm my father down, and then she'd bring me back home up the block like a couple hours later or whatever. Oh, she was wonderful, man. She was wonderful, this woman. She came from South Carolina.
Oh.
And when everybody, was leaving Baltic Street, because the city bought up all the property and they called the projects there, she went back down to South Carolina. Oh, she was wonderful. Oh man, she was wonderful. I'm telling you, I used to get into so much trouble. I used to run down the block. I walk in, I'm like, I'm out of bread. She goes, again? I'm like, get in the back. I get in the back. She used to tell me, you keep getting in trouble. You can't buy no more candy in here. You can't get no more candy from me. I said, but I didn't do nothing. Well, then what are they looking for you for? I said, the guy almost hit me with his car when I was crossing the street. She goes, so? I said, so the guy says, what, are you fucking stupid? She says, yeah. And what'd you tell him? I said, I picked up a brick and broke his window. So I ran down the block. The guy called the cops. She was great.
So what is the greatest either advice or piece of wisdom that she gave you?
Truthfully, she used to tell us. She used to say, don't get in trouble. Make sure you go to school. Don't get in trouble and listen to your mother and father, she used to tell us. But she always told us, don't get into trouble. She goes, you got to make something out of yourself in this world. She goes, you go into school, you get yourself a good education. She goes, and make something out of yourself. She goes, and she said, don't be like these bums on the street, she used to say. Mm-hmm. The guys that were just hanging out, no, they were like dealing dope or dealing drugs, or they were hijacking trucks or whatever. But she was she was fantastic. Oh man, she was great. I hope that she lived. I hope she lived to be 120. I hope she did. She was fantastic, this woman. She really was. And I tell you, and she used to wear, she had that little rope she used to wear in front of her, like the apron with the pockets with the chains and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And she had she used to make, I don't know what you call it, but you ever see like on Aunt Jemima that she used to wear that thing around her head?
Oh, like yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mama Julia used to do that. And then there was times she used to let her hair come down. And I tell you, she was the first woman I saw, black woman that I saw, that actually had dreadlocks or braids. I used to see her. She used to have her hair braided.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But she was, let me tell you something, especially with my family. You mess with Mama Julia, you had to answer to my family and everybody else on the block. This was a woman, you don't mess with her. She tells you to do something, do it, or whatever. She yells at you, keep your mouth shut and just walk away. You get smart with her and try something, you're going to find yourself in the canal somewhere. She wasn't liked. She was loved, Mama Julia. Believe me when I tell you. I used to tell everybody she was my aunt. People used to look at me. And that's my aunt, Mama Julia. They used to look at me. They said, but you're white. Yeah, and she's black. So she's still my aunt. And they said, okay. And they should let it go like that. She was great. She was good. She was good.
I knew that she would put a smile on your face.
Oh, yeah, man. She was something else. So Mama Julia, she was my favorite.
I have tons more questions and things, but we're running close to time, and I did want to be able to let you talk about your second book. So can you talk? Do you want to let us know about that? When it's going to be ready, how we can find it?
Yes. My second book will probably be out, I would say, between March and June of next year. My second book will pick up where book one left off.
Okay. And this is book one.
That's right.
Good. When the
Now,
bullet
book
hits
2 is going to be called When the Bullet Hits the Bone, the Dead Don't Walk.
Okay.
And there's a reason why I called it Dead Don't Walk, which I can tell you. I had gotten shot when the war started in 19. I just came home from prison. I was home for a while, and there was a lot of turbulence in the family, where the family was split into separate sides between the Colombos, and like it was on either side. And I was there with Uncle Buster. Me and Uncle Buster were on the corner talking, and two guys pull up in a car that I knew, and they would say, what's going on? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. We're talking. Well, whose side are you on? I said, well, I'm on the side with the boss, where my family is. Guy pulled out a gun and shot me in my side. With that, Uncle Buster got me to the hospital. That was Uncle Buster Striano. Uncle Buster was fucking great. Gunga Din, we used to call him. My cousin gave him the nickname Gunga Din. I'm in the hospital. Anyway, make a long story short, some guy, before the war started, they took him fishing. Meaning he was the bait. In the ocean, gone, you're never going to see him again. Uncle Buster comes to the hospital to see me, and he's coming every day, and he tells me that he's seen this guy walking. I said, you couldn't have seen him. Because I said, listen, Buster. I said, we're told. I said, this guy's got about 100 pounds of change on him. God knows how many concrete blocks in the bag. He's got like 19 holes in him, they said, and he's in the ocean. He goes, no, I seen him. I said, listen, the dead don't walk. And that's when I remembered that. And I said, that's how I'm going to call it, that part, the dead don't walk.
That's good. I like that.
But now with
So
Uncle Maya, huh?
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Huh?
Uncle Meyer?
With Uncle Maya, with Lufthansa, when we were involved in Lufthansa, what happened, Jimmy Burke had gotten the score from the guy, Marty Krugman. Marty Krugman was a real guy on TV many years ago. He used to say, hard to believe I'm bald. He used to put his hand to his hair and pull his hair. He was a legitimate wig guy, but his name was Marty Krugman. He had a bookmaking operation, Shylock, and he had a gambling operation, but he spent more than he made. He used to borrow from Jimmy Burke. So he got to Jimmy Burke so bad with the money, he gave him this score, $6 million in the Lufthansa terminal in cash, slated to go to Germany. All right. Jimmy Burke went to everybody. Jimmy Burke had to answer to Paulie Vario. So they went to all the families. And these guys were coming up who says, we'll crash through with a truck. We'll come in with helicopters. We're in a fucking airport. They got guards on. So what he done was he got in touch with my cousin Mac, and he got in touch with me, and I went to see him. And he was telling us about it. I says, there's one guy I know who can put this together. He says, who? I said, I'll go down to Miami. I'll see Uncle Maya. He says, go ahead. Paulie says, go ahead, go. I went down, I saw Uncle Maya, I told him. We came back up together a couple of days later, and we took him to the airport. Now, a lot of people said, oh, that's bullshit. Maya Lansky was never in New York in 1978. Well, guess what? Maya was under surveillance by the FBI because the girl who was my ghostwriter on the book, Lisa, she had the records, and the FBI has the records. Maya was in New York in 1978 3 times. And who was Maya in the car with going through the airports? Me, Maya, Jimmy Burke, and my cousin Matt. So there's a thing right there. Maya put it together, but he found 2 metal containers outside the terminal with a red check mark in it in a yellow circle. They were chained together. And I remember when he said, he goes, there's something in there. I thought he was crazy. He goes back to Florida a month and a half later, he comes back. Those 2 containers are still there. So I'm telling you, there's something there. Goes to Florida, comes back in December. He says, we're going to do the score. He sets it all up. We had all the families were involved. Everybody was involved because everybody had somebody in the airport. But the Colombos and the Lucchese's got the biggest part of it because it was basically ours. P.S. Maya sent in 3 crews. 1 went into the office and got through the safe and took out the $6 million in cash. 1 guy worked on 1 container. Another crew worked on another. In 1 container, there was $5 million in jewelry. In the second container, there was $30 million in bearer bonds. Everything was slated to go to Germany, and there was the manifest with everybody's name on there who owned the bonds.
Wow.
The score was much bigger than they said. I got Maya his end of the money, and I brought it to Florida. Then I drove the jewelry down to Florida. He fenced that. Then I loaded up the bearer bonds and I brought that down to Florida. I made the trips back and forth. Everybody got pieced off. Everybody made out like a bandit. And that was Maya was the brains. Nobody else. Don't listen to these guys out there. The brain, no. None of them was. He was the brains of the whole operation. And he was in New York then. But what a score that was. But he knew there was something in them two containers. But the funny thing is, everything was slated to go to Germany. And Maya used to tell me, he says, let me tell you something. He goes, these bearer bonds are hot. This jewelry's hot. He says, so you know what that means? I says, what? He goes, the crooks robbed the crooks. We're the crooks, and we robbed the crooks who robbed it from the people. As I get complained, as if we made a fortune. We made it like bandits on that. I couldn't complain about it one way or the other. I loved it. It was fantastic. He was great with that.
Oh my gosh. So I have one last question that I ask all my guests. And what makes you wow? Like what makes you go wow?
Tell you the truth, I don't know. I gotta be honest. Probably money.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I mean, I've done a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things in my life. And really, I mean, it would really have to be something out of the ordinary.
What kind of cigars do you smoke?
Excuse me?
What kind of cigars do you smoke?
These are Havanas. They're Cubans.
So
the diplomat to Spain is a very dear friend of mine, and I get them from him.
So that would make me wow.
Well, I've been smoking cigars since I'm 18 years old.
Oh my gosh. I appreciate you being on my show. I've had so much fun.
Pleasure.
I have like so many more questions. I'd like to have you back.
Yeah, you tell me when.
When we get closer to your second book, maybe we can promote that and then, or if I know I have a bunch of other questions for you, but thank you again for being here.
Yes, we can do as many interviews as you want. Don't even worry about that.
Okay. Let's see what Bruce is bringing up. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's Stacks. I'm working with chatting with Stacks. I do a lot of interviews with him, and we're putting a couple of things together.
Yeah, so make sure.
You want to laugh? They're doing a rap song about me. They're putting together. A rap song with a video. I swear to God, no lie.
You need to send it to me.
It'll take a little while to get it done, but when it's done, I'll definitely send you a copy, without a doubt.
Okay, I will share it as well. So thank you for being here, and those of you who are watching, thank you for watching. And if you're watching this on the replay and you like what you saw, be sure to share it out. And if you continue to like Ignite Your Wow, please be sure to subscribe and share. So hope you guys have a great day or evening, wherever you are. And we'll see you next week.
Take care. Nice meeting you.